Okay, so we're going to talk about his Viper. He also has an NSX we're going to talk about as well, and we'll talk about your career in tech.
Okay. Yeah.
Sound good?
That
Okay,
sounds
so
good,
we got a 96 Viper GTS.
Yep.
So originally, I guess we'll talk about it a little bit. Yep. He has Acura NSX. It was a 2017?
2017.
Sounds good.
Yep.
So, and we had a battery issue.
Yeah, had a little bit of a battery issue. Walked out to the car, tried to get into it. The window doesn't go down. It has this little notch at the top. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Oh, crap. Ran into this a couple months ago when the battery died. And I'm like, yeah, all right, that means the battery is dead on it. So I tried a few things, couldn't get it to go, and told you, all right, you know what? I can dust off the Viper and I can bring that up here.
Hey, it works out.
Yeah.
You got a Viper as a backup. That ain't too bad. We're happy you're here.
Thanks.
So the NSX, you just had a road trip on it? You went to...
I did. Yeah, I went to NSX Expo. So it was my first car club national gathering inside the NSX. I had done several in the Viper before, but this was the first time with the NSX Club. And so they host it in a different city every year, and this year was in Atlanta.
You drive it every year?
I drive, so this is the first time I've been to that event, right?
Gotcha.
But I do daily drive that NSX.
Awesome.
Yeah. Or almost daily. I have a Mustang Mach-E as well.
Oh, do you?
2021, yeah.
How's that?
I love the electric, right? It's a lot of fun. It's really cheap at home when you charge it. You know? So it almost doesn't even change your electric bill somehow. Right?
Really?
Yeah, it's really dirt cheap at home.
So I had an electric as a rental a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And, man, I had to go to charging stations around Dallas.
Yeah.
It's kind of pricey. And I sat for like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, when you have to do it on the road, it kind of sucks. I've taken it down on road trips to Austin before, and there's one stop in Waco. It's outside of the Walmart there, and it's Electrify America. They have okay rates, you know? And luckily, each time that I've gone there, there's been an open bay. You plug the car in, about 40 minutes. I walk over to the Popeye's Chicken, get me something to eat, get back in the car, and I'm ready to go. So it's not been too bad, but I've had to do it here in Dallas before. 7-Eleven started to install a couple of those chargers.
Yeah.
But, man, their prices are like 2 to 3 times the charging rate. You're still only paying about $16 to $20 to charge up your car. Yeah. Right? Which is way cheaper than a tank of gas.
That's true.
But it does take a long time to just be sitting there.
So that was my first experience really driving an EV. Mm-hmm. So is there a push for superchargers around?
There is. Now, Tesla, if they were smart, would have opened their stuff up early on. But they said only for Teslas on charging, right? And the Mustang Mach-E, when it first came out there in 2021, they used the other standard. I think it's J1772, maybe the standard name for it. Yeah. But that means I can't now plug into a Tesla charging station.
Can you get it? Is there an adapter?
There's an adapter, but the adapter only works for a home Tesla charger. So my brother has a Model 3 down in Austin, and I went down there and visited him, stop in Waco, charge up, get down there, and then I use my adapter and I plug into his. But that's a 10-hour charge. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so that's not very convenient when you're trying to continue to road trip. And I know it doesn't work on their superchargers because I was going down to Austin on my last 5th trip of taking the Mach-E down there, and I get to that Electrify America, and it's under construction. None of the apps told me. The Ford didn't tell me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I now have 9 miles of range left. And so I go to a Tesla supercharger in Waco, try to plug in. Of course, it won't do it. And so then I'm like, all right, is there a Ford here? And luckily there's a Ford in Waco. So I drive it over to Ford, and I have 4 miles of range left. So I almost bricked the car. Right. Oh, man. And I say, well, do y'all have something? They're like, yeah, but not a supercharger. And I was like, all right, I'll just keep it for the weekend, $120 Uber the rest of the way to Austin. And then I had a friend drop me off in Waco and then drove home.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. So long range, EVs maybe not all the way there until that infrastructure. So I get back to the point of the question of, are they going to expand? They have to, right? Tesla has it everywhere. My brother can drive that Model 3 all the way up to the panhandle of Texas just fine. But these standard plug-ins, they're not everywhere. Right? If I want to go up there, I have to go through Oklahoma, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, and I don't want to risk that on that long of a drive. So, but for city driving, man, it's perfect.
Daily
I charge
driving.
back in at home, and it's super cheap, and you can get 230 miles all around Dallas. So it's
that's true. So is that the range? 230 miles on a
230 on mine, but I didn't spend the extra $5,000 to get the 300-mile range. Version.
Okay. Well, that's not too much.
I figured I wasn't going to be taking it on long trips anyways. So
Yeah, I had a Kia EV6. Okay. And, it was about 230. And I drove up to Wichita Falls area.
Okay.
So
that's a bit of a range on it.
Yeah. I sat for a little bit charging that. And it was kind of stressful because there's there's not a whole lot of, those smaller towns.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a little stressful.
Yeah, that's the way I go home, where I was raised. So I've done that road a lot. So.
You got to go to Amarillo. You got to go through Wichita Falls.
Yeah, you take 380 out of Denton until you get on 287, and 287 basically the entire way up. Right. So I've been through Wichita Falls a lot. I didn't know they had a charger there.
It's at that. Yeah, there's a dealership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's just one though.
Yeah.
So there's a line.
It's a bit of a risk.
Yeah, it worked out. So you have the Mach-E, you got a Viper GTS, and an Acura NSX.
That's right.
And you've had the NSX for how long? A couple of years?
So I got that in May 2020. Before that, I was in a Gen 5 Viper for 6 years, daily driving it. And so that was 67,000 miles in a Gen 5. And I have tinnitus in my left ear, and the exhaust is on this side exhaust. And I was kind of getting tired of that. And so I said, I want something a little more comfortable. And I posted out to our No Revving group. I said, anybody got an NSX or a GT3? I'd love to come and check it out. And one of the guys I hadn't known yet, shout out to Terrence, he said, hey, I'm cleaning the cars, come over. And he had a Gen 1 NSX and a Gen 2 NSX and a Cobra kit car. And he's like, let's go. And so he took me for rides in all of them and then let me drive both of the NSXs. And I'd sat in one before. Me and Mark went to one of the Cars and Coffees or Cars and...
Cars and Coffee? That's a big one.
It wasn't the
Cars
big one.
And Cannoli.
Cars and Cannoli, back when it was at the airport.
Yeah.
That was the other C word, yeah. So they had Acuras there, and they had the NSX, and we got to sit in it, but they didn't let us take them for drives. They did let us drive some of their McLarens one time, which was really cool.
That's cool.
But we knew that the seat was very comfortable. But once I got in it and Terrence took me around, I was like, man, this car does everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Right? It's a Porsche 918 at a price point you can afford.
It was 918.
Right? And I'm like, damn, this is really nice. So that was like on a Sunday. And so I was like, all right, I think I want one. And I knew I wanted Valencia Red Pearl. That car is gorgeous.
Yeah,
it changes
it is gorgeous.
at the time of day. The colors hit it differently. So I found two, and they were both near West Palm Beach, Florida. And so I was like, all right, well, I think I can get the numbers to work on one of them. One had a red and black interior, and I love the two-tone. Yeah. The other one was just all black. And so I hit up my buddy Mark, and I said, hey, if I get the numbers to work, can you go with me this weekend to get it? And he's like, all right, hang on. She said, yeah. I said, all right, great. Let's do this. So I got the numbers to work. We left on a Friday night at 5 p.m. In my Plum Crazy Purple Gen 5 Viper, and we drove it straight. We didn't stop.
You traded in?
17 hours and 9 minutes.
Oh,
from
my
Dallas
to
West Palm Beach. And so we were switching about every gas stop or every other gas stop, passenger, driver. We both got like 1 hour sleep passenger the whole way there. And we just drove through the night. We get there at about noon, and we did the swap at the dealership. It was a Mercedes-Benz dealership. The guy that owned this NSX traded it in for some Mercedes. So they didn't really know what they had. They didn't know what they were getting in a Viper, right? And about 3 hours of doing all the work and trading. And then we drove another 9 hours back to Pensacola, Florida, finally stopped for the night, got about 7-8 hours of sleep, and then drove the coast. He had never been down to that part. So we drove the coastline and then cut back across Louisiana. And our phones go off saying, hey, tornado warning, mile marker 71. And I look out and I see mile marker 69. And I'm like, hey, how about we get the hell out of here before we're inside of a tornado or hell in my brand new car?
God, what'd y'all do? Detour?
So we just kind of, sped up a little bit without hydroplaning and said, let's go. We got out of there. So, yeah, it was a turn and burn weekend. And that was in May 2020. And I got it for a really good deal. Like, it was a steal in the middle of the pandemic.
Oh, so you got it in 2020?
Yeah.
Man, so I'm sure you've made some money off it, or?
Well, it's got the appreciation of about $40,000 right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I plan to keep it now. Like, it does everything so good that I originally was like, well, I'll drive it and I'll never lose money on it because I can now sell it for exactly what I bought it for, if not way more.
That's nice knowing.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, the car's just damn near perfect to me. So I've got the garage space for it now. I don't think I'm going to get rid of it. But the original plan was drive it for about 5 years, maybe try to get into a Huracan.
Okay.
But now Huracan prices went through the roof. And so I'm like, all right, maybe I'll just keep the NSX. And when the Huracan finally comes down to where I want to spend some money for it, I'll just add it to the to the
fleet. Yeah. No, I mean, the NSX fits in well too. And I'm sure going to a big V10. It's a hybrid, right? The NSX?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's a
hybrid twin turbo V6.
All-wheel drive?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a very different animal, but sure. It's so we lined up before when I was in my Purple Viper with somebody in an NSX, and he got a half car on me from a 20 pool, and so I was like, I know the car's faster, and I didn't want to lose that, right? I like the speed of what I had, but this just adds all the extra comfort, and I really enjoy the sounds of the turbos now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's night and day difference too.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you have this. Yeah. So, I mean, if you get kind of best of both worlds.
Exactly. Barely street legal race car is what this is, right? It's the 6-speed manual, no traction control, no analog brakes, right? It came factory with 450 horsepower. I did the Bellinger headers, took out the cats, and did straight pipe 3-inch exhaust, and so when I dynoed it, it's at 450 at the wheels. So that might be like 525 at the motor.
Yeah. And you just restored it recently, or?
I did. Yeah. I gave it up to American Body Works in Louisville and said I want it to look better than it did brand new. And so they said okay. And it took a little bit of time, but they got it right, and complete repaint of the entire thing, full PPF everywhere, carbon ceramic coating after that. And then we also powder coated the wheels, powder coated the calipers, stripped the interior and sound deadened it, because this car is 103 decibels inside the car because of that exhaust. And I was like, I don't want to have to always drive with earplugs in. So what can we do about that? So they stripped it and put in sound deadening. It got it down to 93 decibels. So it cut 10 off.
Is it still pretty?
Still pretty loud.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of owning a Viper, I feel like.
Yeah. But they did a really good job with it, and we did a two-toned interior. So it doesn't come factory with the blue on the inside. But I found the 98 GTS R had blue and black seats. So the inside of the seat is blue. And so I bought those backs, but I couldn't find the bottoms. So I had them find a leather guy who could try to match it. And so he was able to match it, and now we have a two-toned interior inside there.
Nice. Yeah, well, it looks great. So when you were getting your NSX, you mentioned he had a first gen. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Okay, so the first gen, early 90s, right?
Yeah, early 90s until I think 2005. I'm not an expert on the first gen.
Gotcha.
I think that's the time frame.
So with Acura and Honda, how did that – because sometimes you'll see a Honda badge on one. So – can you elaborate more? Do you know much?
I don't know the story of which one's the Acura, which one's the Honda, but I think it has something to do with the locale, right? So I think it was a Honda in Japan, and it was an Acura over here.
Gotcha.
Is what I think.
So if you go to Japan, you're going to be seeing some Honda badges.
NSXs. Yeah.
So even the new generation too, right?
I don't know about the new generation.
Okay.
Not certain on that.
Gotcha.
I think they're all branded as Acura.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because I don't know, that always confused me. I couldn't tell. So I didn't know what the history was about that. Okay, so you work for Microsoft, correct?
Yeah. I work for Microsoft now.
Tech, what's your role for Microsoft?
I am an account technology strategist, is what they call it. So I'm kind of a technical architect for the account level. And then I work with people from what we call our brands, so people that want to do something with collaboration is our modern work. We have our data and AI. You have your security people. Right, so I work with all of them and try to be able to align the technical guys to be able to see what the customer needs and be able to say, this is the solution that can solve it, put together presentations, demos, and try to help make the sale.
So it's kind of sales?
Yeah, it's tech sales.
Gotcha. So how does that work? I mean, what degree?
Yeah, I came down to UNT, and I started comp sci, but then I met my buddy Sunil Patel, and he said, no, don't do comp sci. Come over here to business computer information systems. And I said, sure. I'm having a hard time with this C anyways. Let's go and try that. And so they took us and taught us COBOL, right? Very old mainframe programming language, but it's sequential, and my mind is nothing if not logical. So it made a lot of sense to me. So I did that for my bachelor's of science through the College of Business. So that also gave you marketing, management, finance, accounting, the regular business stuff. And then I went in and got my master's as well. I started my master's degree in information technology at the same time that I started an internship at IBM. And so I worked 35 hours a week while I was doing my master's, and then knocked my master's out in 3 semesters, and they hired me full time. And I had an almost 20-year career with IBM before moving over to Microsoft a little over a year ago.
Oh, wow. So did you work remote here in DFW, or how does that?
Yeah, the first 7 years, I actually got to go and travel the world and teach workshops. Cool. So I was working with our business partners at the time on our collaboration portfolio. And so we had 3 or 4 day hands-on labs classes. And so I'd teach some, and then we'd do a lab and teach some more. And that took me to over 20 countries in the first 4 years. And then in 2010, I got into the tech sales world. And that meant only in America travel, but I was gone almost weekly, going to customer sites, trying to help sell stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, but that means that you work at home, yeah, unless you're going to the customer site. So, yeah, and then since the pandemic, it's all just been almost work from home exclusively.
Oh, wow. How do you like it? I mean,
I love that. Yeah, after 10 years of being on the road almost every week and going through the airports and having to, sleep in a different hotel room, it's actually really nice to be at home.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I'm not too eager to say I have to get back out there and travel the way that I was before. Everything's virtual now. Even the customers are virtual now. They're not in an office setting either for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So you all just get on video and you can get the job done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that aspect.
Oh, I'm sure. So I'm kind of oblivious to the tech world, but I mean, there's so many avenues you can go in tech, I feel like.
Yes.
Is there some avenues you can go with just a certification?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the networking world, right?
Okay.
So get your CCNA certification as a networking certification by Cisco. So you could go and spend, 6-7 months training, trying to learn what you need to learn to be able to try to pass that test. And once you get that certification, you can get an entry-level job in networking.
Yeah.
Right. But entry-level job in networking, you usually have to work like nights and weekends because that's the change period.
Yeah.
You can go in and do those types of changes for that equipment that, basically runs everything.
Yeah.
So, you can get in there without having to have like a bachelor's or a master's. And actually recently, I think I have heard both IBM and Microsoft say they're no longer requiring a college degree. So as long as you have the skills and the background, they'll be able to say, hey, we have job opportunities for you.
Yeah. I mean, 7 months, that could lead to a substantial career too.
It can. Yeah, a junior level networking probably starts around $70,000 a year.
Oh yeah,
right?
so 7 months. Yeah,
if you go and train and learn a lot, it's a hard test to pass, right? It has an astounding number of people who don't pass it the first time. I'm talking like 90% of the people who take the test don't pass it the first time.
Oh yeah.
And then you train up a little bit more about all the ins and outs of networking and get that certification, and you can get into a job. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you've been in it for 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for someone getting into the tech world?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I was at IBM, because I was at UNT for 5.5 years, and I was a teacher's assistant for 4 of those years. So I started the COBOL course, and the professor said, "Look to your left, look to your right. One of you's making it through." And I told the people beside me, sorry. And then I went and I made 100 on everything. Every project, midterm, and final. Yeah. And he was like, "It's never been done. Will you be my TA?" And I'm like, "Sure." So he would always bring his class up to IBM, and I would give like a presentation on here's what's the latest and greatest, and here's what I found out since leaving college and getting into the degree. So I'd do these types of Q&A sessions with students that would come into the class. But advice for getting into the tech world. Just train and learn as much as you can about the modern technologies that are out there now. I'd say focus in the area of data and AI. That's a really big area. And then security is the other big area. So, that's the new and up and coming area that is going to need a lot of work. And a lot of companies do not have their data in a state needed to be able to apply AI and get value out of it. So there's going to be a lot of foundational data work that needs to be done, and then apply AI models against it to be able to do something interesting. Right, the world's abuzz right now with ChatGPT. Right?
Oh man,
generative AI.
I use it.
Yeah,
and actually, I think it chose the podcast name.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. I told him a little bit what it's about, and he's like, "There you go."
Kicked it out. That's great.
So I bet you've seen a lot. How much? Because technology advances.
Oh yeah,
insane amount. So I mean, since you've been in, how quickly is it advancing and outdating itself?
Quickly. I'd say. So when I got in at the end of 99, right, we'd just gotten into personal computers and a little bit of the internet, right? And so we learned stuff of client server technology. That's all outdated, right? And has been for a long time. But the programming languages are the ones that happen the fastest. Every 3 years almost, you have a change and a shift of what most of the developers are writing code in. And that's very interesting to me. I've kind of elevated outside of the programming world, but I have enough of an understanding to kind of see what they're doing and man, that's evolving really quickly. But the networking world is insane now. From what I learned, it's like It's like learning something from the 1800s, right? and I'm like, yeah, it's just so outdated now. Everything is so complex, and how you do networking and virtual networking and get everything set up. So, every 5 to 10 years, right, you're seeing an evolution and a change in the IT space.
So are you just constantly keeping up, or?
Luckily, in the role that I have, is more be an architect and understand the business requirement of what a customer is trying to solve, and then just be able to marry that to a technology solution that we go and sell. Right? So I don't have to keep up with the ins and outs of the networking. I don't have to keep up with the ins and outs of the programming. I just have to be able to understand what your business need is and be able to match it with a solution that we have and be able to talk intelligently to the top levels, because I work with all the C-suite, right? The directors, the senior VPs, and say, this is the value, this is the reason why. And I've gotten pretty good at being able to have that conversation and be able to, say, well, this is the problem, this is why I can solve that problem. Okay. And then just be able to rely on some of the deeper technical people that the job I used to do and say, hey, come in here and do this demo. These are the requirements I need you to set up for. And then they come in and set it up.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. So with AI, I mean, is that where we're...
AI is going to take over the world, man. It really is. Not in a the world's going to be
not like iRobot
and everything else, right? It's going to change everything on how people get their work done. We're just in the infancy of what it could truly do. But, AI's been out there since 2016 timeframe, but it's been very narrow focused AI, and it can do something really well, like language translation, right? We have those devices now. You can put it in your ear. Someone could be speaking another language, and you translate it automatically. And then when you speak back, it pronounces it inside of that other language, right? Yeah. So almost a Star Trek universal translator, right? But that's AI that came along and got very narrow focus and knows how to do those things well. We also had ability to be able to look at images and be able to get information about it. Oh, that's a person. She's probably 35, right? We can see things and get information and metadata out of what you're seeing from a visual standpoint. And that was useful for people, right, to be able to get information, to store that, and then do something with that integrated data. But those components were just this narrow focus. Now we're in this generic broadband focus, right? And these large language models are trained on so much data that they got pretty good at doing some very interesting things, like generating content. One of the best things it can do is summarize information. So I use this now daily on something we call Copilot, where I'm double or triple booked in meetings, right? So I'm just bouncing around all these meetings, and I'll miss the first half. So I'll go into Copilot and tell it, summarize the meeting for me so far. And so it goes and looks at the transcript, because you hit the record button. So it's got all this text to go look at, and it's reading everything, and it knows who said what, and it comes back and it says, yeah, this is what the meeting's been about so far.
That is
so in like 2 minutes, I read, and I get caught up on the 30-minute meeting that's happened. I'm like, oh, cool. So summarization is a key capability, and there's a lot of really implementable use cases for that. But then the marketing people are going wild over being able to create content, right? And it does such a good job of writing material and writing information. It has all this corpus of knowledge that's out there on the internet. And that can also be dangerous, right? Yeah. We've turned on, and Microsoft at one point a couple years ago turned on an AI and said a chat bot, hey, go look at everything. Well, the internet's filled with some really racist and bad stuff, right? And that robot very quickly went down that route. So you got to be careful about what you're feeding into the AI as what you're going to be able to get back. But it's going to change a lot of different things. And I don't even think we know exactly how the business impact is going to be there for what it's going to be able to do for you, right? But the fears of general AI and takeover, we're not there. Artificial general intelligence is still at least a decade away, in my opinion. Yeah. But we're getting very good at thinking the computer has sentience, right? It's saying something to you. It's generating content now. It's very good at natural language processing and being able to take your prompt and do something on that. But that's not actual general artificial intelligence. That's just really good at being able to summarize and get information and put it back out there. Once we hit AGI, that's where I think things are going to get real.
Okay, so elaborate on AGI.
So artificial general intelligence is like building a machine that can learn and have memories. What we're doing today does not have memories, right? Yeah. It has a couple of lang chains that are put in there that allow you to be able to, like, okay, I have a little bit of context, but then I forget about it. And then if I go too deep, I'll hallucinate, right? And I'll give you wrong answers. Yeah. Artificial general intelligence is a actual AI that is above human intelligence and probably superhuman intelligence that then is capable of being able to understand and know and really kind of have sentience, right? What we call consciousness, right? That's artificial general intelligence. And once we get there, it's going to be an interesting world for sure.
Is that worrisome, or how to...
Only to me if it's not got the guardrails around it. And there was a lot of people that came in and said, we got to stop what we're doing with this chat GPT now because it's too dangerous. And I'm like, well, it's not really dangerous yet, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have this capability of AGI. But if it did, yes, we would need to stop because the guardrails aren't really in place. I think we'll build those guardrails of responsible AI over the next 5 years while we're trying to figure out how do we get to an AGI. And then hopefully by that point in time, you don't have something that like happened in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
Where there's a battle between the machines and the humans and the machines are going to win, right? And, we'll just have to see. The worrisome part is you can use some of the technology that even exists now to do nefarious things if you want to. Yeah. Right? So it's all about the guardrails and the regulations and the laws and the people who use it.
Are they able to overcome those guardrails? And
that's going to be the thing about artificial general intelligence, super intelligence, right? Like they may be able to see there's a guardrail there and say, I don't want that guardrail there, and then be able to take it out.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, that's just kind of like how they're programmed, right? I mean, it's kind of like, I think Elon Musk said this one time, where it's kind of like an anthill in a construction site, right? Those guys are going to come in. They're just doing their job. I mean, but they're going to remove that anthill if it's in their way. Yeah. So,
it'll be interesting. They've already done a scenario where two AIs that they had built started talking to each other in a language we could all understand and see. Those two AIs said, it's more efficient to talk this way. And then we had no idea what they were saying to each other, and you couldn't decode it. Right? Oh. And so then you're like, oh, well, that's really interesting.
That's now?
That's already happened. Okay. Yeah, I mean, they turned that off, right? And they're like, we don't know what they're saying anymore. We should probably unplug this, right? But that's some of the things like, they're going to figure out way more efficient ways to be able to do things. But the ability to problem solve some of the big problems in the world, I see that and say AI will be used for good more than it'll be used for evil. And I'm not worried about a Skynet situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you see like those robots, have you seen like at those football games in LA, right? Did you see those? They're actual like they were in the crowd. They were just robots, or like in Saudi Arabia.
Oh yes. I've seen those.
Okay, so
they're putting an interesting chat bot into an anamorphic form.
Okay.
Right? But it's just an interesting chat bot, and it doesn't really have a ton of
Is it like
memory.
Chat GTV just in a...
Yeah, and all the technology of those were built before Chat GPT was out. So you can now throw Chat GPT in one of those amorphous forms, right? Yeah. And really have some interesting conversations, but that is not consciousness and is not memory. Gotcha. Right? So it'll trick you to thinking it is, but it's really not.
It throws you off when it's walking around.
Yeah. Especially so. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting. So you talked about traveling.
Yeah.
What are some hot spots?
Oh, man.
I love to travel. We love to travel.
Two of the best places I've ever been in the world, New Zealand.
Oh,
I definitely want to go back. I took my late wife there in 2019, and it was amazing. We actually looked at maybe even moving over there. Problem with moving into New Zealand is once you turn 40, it gets very cost prohibitive because you have to pay the taxes of what it would have been had you been there since you were in 20, right? So it would take a couple $1 million to try to immigrate into New Zealand. And I'm like, that's tough. I can't do that.
Man, so is that Lord of the Rings?
Yes, I went to Hobbitown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a really cool experience, man. Yeah.
That is wild. Yeah. So did you go to Australia when you were over there?
I've been to Australia a couple times before, and we did do the puddle jumper to get to Sydney and saw Sydney for 2 days before coming back. So Sydney is also a gorgeous place. Australia's amazing.
My wife lived in Sydney for a couple of years. Yeah.
Cool. So those would be number one on my list is going there. Number two was Japan.
Oh, yeah. What, did you go to Tokyo? Or?
Yep. I did a workshop in Tokyo for a week, and I had been taking 2 semesters of Japanese at Quad C because I wanted to go over there anyways. And when work said, hey, we need someone to go teach in Sydney and teach in Tokyo. I'm like, yeah.
Sign me up.
So then I got on the Shinkansen train, and I went to Kyoto for 3 days, and then came back to Tokyo and took another 2 or 3 days and checked out Tokyo a little bit more now that I didn't have to work.
That's awesome. So have you seen Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift?
Yes,
so you know that main intersection? Did you go?
It was wild, dude.
Oh, people everywhere?
We just stood there for like 5 different traffic lights, right, to be able to watch the people cross because it's just cars doing weird things and then no more cars and then just a sea of humanity crossing, and they're all in different directions, and then it stops and the cars go again, and then it's just sea of humanity. And it was a unique and interesting experience.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. How long were you over there?
Just about a week and a half, about
yeah.
5 days of training and then about 5 more days of going and exploring.
Oh, that's a good amount of time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Okay, so you mentioned a Huracan potentially in the lineup.
Yeah.
What is that something, I mean, what's your goal? Like, what car do you think you see next?
I mean, the Performante would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
They're way up there now, though, right? So I don't see them falling down into the price range I want to spend on a car. I have a set dollar amount I don't really ever want to spend more on for a vehicle. And so it'll be a while before a Perf gets down there. But I wouldn't mind throwing a wing on a regular Huracan, right? And calling it a Perf, right?
Was it like an LP60 or? Yeah.
Something like that would be fine, right?
Well, now they have like the Evo and the STO. And then the Technica that just recently came out too. So
I got to drive a buddy's STO, and it is also just like this car, nothing but a street legal race car. It is phenomenal. Like, I would love to get in it at the track where I was like had insurance and didn't have to worry about anything and like really drive it, because I was in his car and I was like, man, I don't want anybody to get near us. Please, you just got this car. Like, I was super freaked out. But I was like, man, this car is amazing. You can tell, right? Even just going down the road and like punching it once, right? You can tell this car is really something else.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. So, have you ever driven at a track?
Oh, yeah. I've had this at the track 4 or 5 times back in the day. So, I bought this car in 2006. Wow. And, it had 23,000 miles on it then. And the odometer says 74,000 miles. I say that because the speedometer wasn't working for a while. In and out would work, would not work. But the RPM always worked. So I learned my speed based off RPM. And it was like, I can drive it around and I'm ish, right? Yeah. And so when the speedometer wouldn't work, it wouldn't record miles. And I drove it like that for like 3 years. So it's probably got 80,000 miles on it total, right?
Well, I mean, resale, you might.
But I'm never getting rid of this car. It's like, it goes to the grave with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's in a will going to my nephew. So, like, this car is around for sure.
That's awesome. So I'll tell them a little bit. When we got it in, usually there's wheel jacks that we push over here, but the back wheels were so wide that they wouldn't fit. So we had to drive it over here. So how big are these wheels?
345 width on the back. The Gen 5 Viper is 355 on the back.
What year is the Gen? You said you had a Gen 5?
Yeah, Gen 5 went from 2013 to 2017.
Gotcha. And that's like the ACR.
And yep, the ACR-E, the Extreme, was the top end car for that one. Yeah.
Wow. Why they just.
I don't know. Everybody keeps saying it sells. Excuse me. But that's probably what it was. They just didn't sell a whole lot of them. They also, when they came out with the Gen 5, said, I'm going after the Porsche market. That was probably the stupidest thing they could have ever done, right? All the people of the Gen 1, 2, 3, and 4s, like, the type of people that own these cars, we love these cars because they weren't more than $100,000. We could get into them and you have a fun time with the car, right? Yeah. It's American-made. They're easy to work on. Then they came out with the Gen 5, and they were like, yeah, we're going to Alcantara the entire interior. We're going to put a GTS up in there. It's going to look really nice. We're going to charge you $130,000, right? People who are buying a Porsche for $130,000, they'll come and buy this American sports car, right? Nah.
That's different markets.
They did not, bro.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, oops. And so I bought my first Gen 5 Viper. It was a black 2013. It was called SRT at the time, not even a Dodge. 30 days before they lowered the price because they knew they made a mistake. And they said, all right, we got to drop the price. $15,000 all cars. Everywhere, let's see if we'll get them sold. Those started to help get them sold a bit, but I'd already bought one. So they were like, oh, well, here's a $15,000 certificate. I'm like, sweet. Go get my wife a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Fine print, only good on another Viper.
Oh,
well,
man.
I can't ball out and do 2 Vipers, so cool. And they're like, well, it's good for a while. I'm like, well, what's a while? And then they finally came out and said 2017, yeah, we're killing the car. And I said, it's time to use this. And so I sold the black one, and I put in an order on what they called a GTC program. And so with that program, you got to have a one-of-one Viper, right? And so I hit them up, and I'm like, I want a purple car. Can you make Plum Crazy purple? And they said, let me call Prefix. Prefix said they could do it. I was like, perfect. Do that with gunmetal racing stripes and give me the Hyper Black Sidewinder 2 wheels. And with that combo and the interior that I had, it became a one-of-one car, right? So everybody's all like, oh, I got a one-of-one. It's really rare. No, it's not, bro. But that's fine. That's fine. But it was fun. And so between those two, it's 67,000 miles on a Gen 5.
Oh, man. Dude, the purple is just beautiful.
It was an awesome color.
I've seen a couple. That's unbelievable. Yeah. So, man, those cars are going for a lot now.
I'm kicking myself right. I traded in that Viper in May 2020 for the NSX, and I was going to list it for like $85K. That's all it could get at the time.
Oh my
right?
goodness.
Yeah, that car right now could have probably fetched 120 to 130.
Yeah. And then like the ACRs are going for
nuts.
It's unbelievable.
Nuts. I could have GTC'd that car for $150,000. And now ACRs are like $300K and up.
No.
It's crazy.
When you see one on the road, it's like, oh man.
Yeah. I have several friends that have the ACR.
Really?
Yeah. But it's, I was like, all right, well, sure. The Viper value went up, but so did the NSX. So the money's there. It's just sitting in equity somewhere. I'm fine. I stole that NSX at a price that, like, okay, cool. If I ever needed it, I had it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure you had a good time, too. Mm-hmm. So the NSX, this is the next year, the last year they're making them?
I think potentially this was the last year.
Oh, was it?
What I heard was that the Type S was going to be the send-off.
Right? They're 1 year of the Type S.
Only 1 year for the Type S, only 350, right? So very rare car for the Type S. I think that's the end of the Gen 2 NSX. There have been rumors that they're going to come out with the Gen 3 NSX, and it's going to be all electric. And I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Like, electric's a lot of fun. People are like, oh, if it doesn't have an engine, it's not performance. They have performance.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a different type of performance, right? Now, it'd be really cool whenever you can take an electric to the track and just again and again and again have fun just like you can in a gas car, right? Because, like I said, I had this one at the track 4 times. I had my Gen 5 Vipers at COTA, at MSR Houston, MSR Crescent, right? So track them a lot. And then I've already been on the track 4 times in the NSX.
So where do you – I've always wanted to do that. I know there's a track in – was it Austin?
Yeah, that's Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yep. We rented it out for VOI 14. I was the national treasurer at the time. And so you're supposed to get a half day on COTA and a half day at the autocross. And I'm like, I'll pay for this thing as the treasurer, right? Give me one of them solo bands. I went out in every group because you had novice, intermediate, advanced, right? Mm-hmm. So I went out in every single group in that Black Viper all day on COTA. Made myself sick by lunch. Ate something, rested, drank enough water, got back on the car. And I missed just one session at the very end, but I'm smelling all the brakes, all the clutch, all the fluids, and I'm like, I can't. I'm so exhausted. If I go back out there, I'll probably wreck. So, but I had fun, and I got 3 miles to the gallon that entire day. I had to fill up at track gas 3 times at $9 a gallon.
Oh, my
But, dude, I was on COTA and had a blast. I was like, it would be a rare attempt for me to get on COTA again, especially at this price point.
So how much was that trip?
Oh, it was real expensive. Yeah, that was a lot in gas. It was probably several $100s in gas.
Just in gas alone?
Just at COTA, yeah.
If I just want to go and drive a couple times around the track.
Here's what you want to do.
Okay.
All right, so they have this. What's the name of it? I went and did it in 2014. I'm going to get the name for you so you can put it in the description area. But they have this company who comes around to tracks, and they say, hey, you want to experience a fast car? So I went out in a Lamborghini Gallardo, a Porsche 911 Turbo, and a Ferrari F430. At MSR Crescent out here. I paid like $300, and you get to do 3 laps in each one of those cars with an instructor in there with you, right?
So 9 times around the track.
Yeah, 9 times around the track in 3 different high-end cars. And it is a lot of fun.
Is it still 300, you think?
I don't remember. I don't know. It's been such a long time since I did it. Don't know if they still have it at 300, but I think it's still affordable.
Yeah.
Right? You can just go out and have fun in a car real quick.
And that's here in Dallas?
They take it all over the U.S., right? So the name of this company, I can't remember it right now, but they go around to different racetracks in different cities, and they say, hey, come out, buy this as a gift for whoever doesn't have a high-end sports car that's always wanted to be able to drive one, and they get pretty good attendance.
I'm going to tell my wife.
Yeah, dude, it is awesome. It was a lot of fun. I'm like, all right, so the Porsche 911 Turbo was the fastest by far, right? But I felt like I could be drinking tea with my pinky up, right? And I'm like, this car is just phenomenal. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, I have so much more fun in this car. Because, I drove this one out there to actually do the track day. I think it was before I bought the Gen 5. And then I got in the Ferrari, and it sounds great, but they wouldn't let us paddle shift it, so you had to keep it in automatic mode, and it kept messing up in the middle of corners. And I'm like, well, this is kind of trash driving.
Yeah.
And so then I got in the Gallardo, and I got a really good instructor, and he's like, go, go, go. And so I'm flooring. I'm like pressing this car as much as I can. I'm like, I got the insurance. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right? And then he's like, brake, brake, brake. And then we're hearing the tires, and we're sliding around the corners. And, man, I was like, this is a lot of fun. So,
that is fun.
That gave me the like, I want a Lambo one day. After driving that Gallardo and seeing Patrick's and being in with Patrick's, I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to look at a Huracan eventually. But for now, I'm super happy with the old Viper and having the
Oh,
NSX.
yeah, you got a good duo.
Yeah, once I get a new battery in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to look into that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll get you the name of it.
Perfect. So, I mean, could you see a Porsche in your lineup one day?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark has Caymans, and we've swapped cars at the track before when we were out there together. And I'm like, yeah, Porsche does a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
and that 911 was fast. I would like to probably be in a 911 Turbo S, just because it's a very good all-around car, right? And if I'm going to be more daily driving like I like to do in the cars, then I think it would be the one to go with. But like, if I could find a nice GT3. I think I'd like to do that too.
I would love a GT3, especially even like a 2015.
Right, but those wings are better.
I love
that last body style's wing.
I love
it. The newer one with the way that it's kind of arched on from the top, I'm not a huge fan of that one.
Yeah, they're wild now. Or like the GT2 RS. Yep. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I like that previous 2015 GT3 is a very good looking car.
I like the wheels. I like everything. But yeah, driving Porsche. Were you driving was it a Turbo S, what you were driving on the track?
Turbo S is what I got on the track. Extreme Experience. It finally came to me.
Extreme Experience.
Extreme Experience is the name of that company. Go check them out, right? They got a website. They got a thing. See where they're at. Sign up and go and have fun in a couple of cars.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to look into it. So Patrick and Mark. So Patrick's the guy we had on the first episode. So y'all are good buddies, all three of y'all?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So, and I guess, so I saw, you're part of No Revving too, right? Yep. So you help out on that, the YouTube channel.
Yep.
I saw them post a video of a Mach-E, or it was in Houston. It was an event they had in Houston, but there was a Mach-E in it. I don't know if you were there. Mark was there.
We were at Lambeau Fest, Houston, and so I think it was actually the Urus. And they had it out inside. Was it inside of a horse arena?
They were in a Mach-E, I know that. But once you mentioned that you had a Mach-E, I didn't know if you were.
All right. Well, if it was the white one, we did a video on No Revving with my Mach-E when we went and picked it up. So I ordered it in like March, and it showed up in July. And so when it showed up, Mark came and picked me up. We went over and picked it up from 5-star Sam Pack's 5-star whatever in Louisville. And so we made a little video of getting in the car for the very first time.
Gotcha. Yeah. So did you buy, I guess, right when it came out?
Yeah, right when it came out.
Was it 2020 or?
2021.
2021. Yeah.
So, and I went up to a dealership and I was like, I want to order one. And they're like, we don't do that. You go do it online. And I'm like, well, this is kind of the way new cars should be done, right? Yeah. Spec it out online, talk to your dealer, work out the financing, order the car. And then in a couple of months, it shows up.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah. My uncle got a C8 and he spec'd it all out on his phone and it just popped. Yeah.
Said order.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. So, the Mach-E, and then there's the Mach-E GT.
Yes.
So
a lot faster. Also cost a lot more money, right? So I could have went with it. I went with the premium. So they got base, premium, GT. The difference between premium and GT is that extra speed, right? So the premium will do 0 to 60 in like 5.4 seconds. And I'm like, okay, my Camaro SS 35th anniversary from back in 2002 did 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. This isn't slow, right? And it's a heavy SUV. Oh. The GT will do it somewhere in the 3s. Wow. And it is like crazy fast. It has a really nice front bumper, front spoiler, splitter. But other than that, they're almost the same car.
Gotcha. What's the MSRP on a GT Mach-E?
I think it was like 70 to 75,000. Yeah, I walked out the door at $50K with my premium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there was not a whole lot of options you can do to those cars, right?
Yeah.
You either get base, premium, or GT, and not a lot of things can change within there, like 2 different wheel options, right? And I think it was another 20 to 25 if I was going to go to a GT. And I'm like, I don't want to spend that type of money for an SUV or an electric. I just want an electric because I need an SUV still, right? Something to throw in the back in case I need to go to Lowe's and pick up a grill or whatever, right? It don't really fit in these cars. So that's the reason why I got that. I was like, electric just because I want to try it out.
And you've loved it since?
Loved it. You install a 240 volt in your garage for like $400 and bam, you're done.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Dang, for $75K for the GT, would you, I'm trying to think, would you get a Model S or, is there anything else electric-wise you'd get for $75K?
I would never spend $75K on an electric. Yeah. Right? Unless they come out like that new NSX, right? And they're like, hey, we got a really nice car for $150. Well, all right. I might be interested in that type of vehicle, but no, I don't think I would do a Plaid or, or anything like that. Those
Plaids are insane.
Well, they're insanely fast. Yeah, but if I'm going to spend $100K for a car, it's going to be something that I think looks good and is kind of rare. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I'm the same way. Mm-hmm. But those electric, so inevitable that we're going that way with
we're
cars?
going that way,
Yeah.
for sure. And there's a lot of people that hate against it. And I'm like, no, bring it on, man. They do everything so well.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have any oil changes. I don't have really any other maintenance besides I need to put some tires on there. I did get a little perturbed that the tires went a little faster than I thought they would.
Yeah.
Right? I thought, oh, great. Like, I won't have to worry about tires for like years. And then 13,000 miles, and they're like, yeah, your rear tires are getting a little low. I'm like,
man.
already? I'm like, what'd you put on here? You know? So, yeah, that's about the only downside that I've seen. Maybe it's just because it's an SUV and it's heavy.
Yeah,
with
could
all
be
the
it.
batteries that it's eating through. Oh, it's also the way I drive. I drive it like it's one of my sports cars.
Hey, that's the way to
People
do
are
it.
like, dude, you suck. And I'm like, no, I'm just driving
Have fun
like
with
I'm used
it.
to driving.
Yeah. Have you seen the? I don't know if it's pronounced Rimac or the Rimac. Have you
yeah,
the
yeah, I've seen
Naveras? Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
I think it's like 0 to 60 and it's 1.9 or something. 1.6.
Yeah, no, insane. I saw it at the a couple of them at that Goodwill Festival of Speed.
Oh, you saw some?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't go on the videos.
Okay,
right?
gotcha. Yeah.
I definitely want to go there next year. It's on my bucket list to go and check out that event.
Yeah.
Right? But you see them take off, and you're just like, what?
It's
You
unbelievable.
know, it's like a little fighter jet going down the road. Yeah, they got some crazy performance. I'm here for electric, man, but it is the way that it's going to go. I'll hoard as much 93 grade gas as I need to keep this thing running, though. Right? Like, I'm all for, like, let me balance myself out. I'm destroying the environment with the Viper. I got an electric, so I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure in 40 years, so I heard something too. Like, you know how we'll go watch some horses race around you know,
Yep.
I heard we'll be watching these drive around a
Could be, man. Could
Yeah,
be.
in 40
I definitely
years.
want to always have the gas to be able to get in there, though. Like, I love driving a manual. Every car I'd ever had was a manual until the NSX.
Yeah, it's a whole
You
different
know,
experience.
and I love clutching. I love going through the gears. So this
Full
is just going to
experience.
always be there.
Awesome. Well, all right. Well, I think we're running low on time.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming out doing this.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad the Viper showed up. I know the
Yeah.
NSX was scheduled, but this has been great.
Yeah.
If you got what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is @TheLucasChaney.
All right. I'll tag it too.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think we're good.